There is a kind of power most people will never touch. Not because they don't want it, but because they couldn't survive it. It's not the power of influence, not the power of wealth, not even the power of control over others. It's the kind of power that changes you, twists your mind, warps your identity, and once you cross the threshold you don't go back to being normal. Machiavelli warned that most people are better off powerless because if you hand real power to the average man, he self-destructs, he overreaches, he becomes reckless, he confuses being feared with being respected, and before long he ends up surrounded by enemies or worse by people who pretend to admire him until it's time to strike. That is why Machiavelli never taught power to the masses. He wrote for the one, the ruler, the shadow, the strategist. And if you're listening now, you are not meant to be average. But if you are not careful, this level of power will eat you alive. Let's start with the first uncomfortable truth. True power is built on emotional detachment. People think power is about having status, money, followers, fame, but that's surface-level noise. Machiavelli understood real power starts with the ability to remain emotionally separate from the reactions of others. Because here's what destroys most people. They get a taste of influence, and instantly they start craving approval. They begin calculating their words based on applause. They start needing loyalty instead of demanding it. They turn into performers, not rulers. Machiavelli would spit on this. He believed the moment your emotions are tied to how others feel about you, you become their subject, even if they appear to serve you. That's why his most dangerous pupils were cold, not cruel, not angry. Cold, because the man who doesn't flinch when others beg, cry, flatter, or threaten, that man can command empires. But here's the paradox. The more emotionally detached you become, the more others will be obsessed with controlling you. They'll say you're too cold, you've changed, you don't care about anyone, you think you're better. They'll test you, trying to guilt you back into being manageable. They'll throw emotional bait at your feet like landmines, hoping you pick one up. And if you fall for it, you prove to them you are faking your power. But if you walk through the chaos unfazed, if you watch them without moving, without reacting, without explaining yourself, they'll know you're not like them anymore. You've crossed the line. The second truth is that power isn't given. It's taken silently. Most people wait for permission. They want power handed to them, granted by title, validated by others. That's weakness. Machiavelli taught that true power is never offered. It's taken, but without noise, no declaration, no announcement, no rebellion. You simply become the one they listen to, the one whose silence makes others talk faster, the one whose presence bends the room, the one who doesn't raise his voice, but whose decisions ripple through everyone. This doesn't happen overnight. It's a war of positioning. You learn who's emotionally weak. You study who's trying to be seen. You say less, move smarter, strike quietly, and before they realize it, you're the one orchestrating everything without ever stepping into the spotlight. That's why Machiavelli said, "It is better to be feared than loved if one cannot be both." But what he meant was deeper, be unreadable, be untouchable, be so subtly dominant that love becomes fear in disguise. The final truth in this phase: if you do not control your environment, it will reprogram you. This is what destroys even the smartest men. They learn power, they rise, they dominate, and then they get comfortable. Surrounded by the wrong people, the wrong energy, the wrong feedback. Slowly they soften. They laugh too easily. They trust the untested. They ignore signs. And the environment that once worshipped them turns on them and eats them. Machiavelli didn't just advise rulers to be strategic. He told them to guard their circle like a lion guards fresh meat. Because your environment is either sharpening you or softening you. There's no neutral. And if you think you can stay powerful while being surrounded by people who are emotionally weak, chaotic, dishonest, or needy, you're already being drained. The strongest Machiavellian minds cut people off preemptively. Not with cruelty, but with clarity. They don't announce it. They disappear. They reposition. They observe from distance. And if someone flinches at your boundaries, they were never worthy of your proximity. This level of power is not fun. It is not beautiful. It is not exciting. It is surgical. It is lonely. It is cold. But if you can handle that, if you can bear the silence of not needing to explain yourself, the restraint of watching others destroy themselves, and the discipline of always staying 2 moves ahead, then you're ready for what comes next. Because this is only the foundation, the next phase. Weaponized invisibility, psychological distance, and how to bend perception itself until others move exactly how you want without ever realizing it. Real power doesn't announce itself. It doesn't come with a crown or a title. And it certainly doesn't need noise. The most dominant individuals in history never screamed. They barely spoke. They simply rearranged the room by existing in it. And that is where the second layer of Machiavellian power begins. Psychological gravity becomes the empty space everyone fills. Most people enter a room and try to stand out. They talk more, they dress louder, they posture. But the one with real power does the opposite. He becomes the quietest presence, the one who speaks last but says what everyone remembers. Why? Because silence isn't weakness, it's dominance in slow motion. Machiavelli's true students didn't need to add anything to get attention. They simply subtracted themselves from noise and let others fill the void. And when people speak into your silence, they reveal everything. Their insecurities, their need for validation, their desperate need to be seen by you. Now you hold the psychological high ground. You're not reacting, you're not performing, you're watching. And the room begins to orbit around your stillness. Master selective illusion. Machiavelli knew that perception was more powerful than action, but he never recommended being fully transparent even to allies. Instead, he taught a technique that today's powerful use constantly. Controlled contradiction. You must become what no one can fully pin down. You praise peace, but can be violent when necessary. You appear generous, but never give without reason. You seem approachable, but no one feels close to you. This creates tension, the very essence of authority, because people don't fear what they understand, they fear what they can't predict. So give them just enough illusion, a smile with no warmth, a compliment that feels slightly too timed, a kindness that never repeats. It makes them question, who is he really? And once they're busy questioning you, they're no longer guarding themselves. You've now entered their mind. And Machiavelli knew that once you're in there, you've already won. Decouple empathy from strategy. Let's get this straight. You don't need to be heartless. You don't need to be cruel. But if you want to stay powerful, you must learn the rarest skill, feeling empathy without letting it dictate action. This is where normal people fall apart. They see someone suffer and their emotions overtake their judgment. They confuse kindness with safety. They assume good intent where there is only convenience. And worst of all, they sacrifice strategic ground to avoid feeling guilty. That's not power. That's emotional slavery. Machiavelli saw this flaw in rulers, and he warned that the moment your decisions serve your feelings over your vision, you've already handed power to someone else. So practice this ruthlessly. Observe suffering without impulsively intervening. Listen to excuses without softening your standards. Feel emotion. Acknowledge it but move by logic. That's what makes you untouchable. You're not cold because you're cruel. You're cold because you've seen what empathy without strategy does. It creates victims with crowns. Make people chase your validation without ever giving it. People kill themselves for applause. They twist who they are to earn it. They sell their dignity to be liked. You weaponize absence. Here's how Machiavelli would do it. Instead of praising someone for doing something good, say nothing. Instead of reacting to flattery, change the subject. Instead of approving their ideas, challenge them, then walk away. Why? Because the most addictive currency is unreceived approval. It lingers. It haunts. It makes people spiral trying to earn what you didn't even offer. You become their mirror, their source of validation, their internal voice, and now you own them, and they thank you for it. Learn the art of the clean exit. Power isn't just in how you enter, it's in how you leave and what you leave behind. Machiavelli never advised creating chaos unless you could vanish before the explosion. So here's the rule. When your influence is at its peak, leave not permanently, but strategically. Withdraw from people who are becoming too familiar. Step back from dynamics you already dominate. Disappear from spaces where your silence is feared more than your words. Why? Because the exit is where your myth begins. Let them wonder, why did he leave? Did I say something wrong? Was it part of his plan? Let your absence echo louder than your presence. Because the one who controls their own disappearance controls how they're remembered. That's the kind of power Machiavelli revered. Not control through presence, but control through ghost-like distance. Now you understand why this level of power destroys most people. They can't handle being misunderstood. They need to be seen, praised, validated. They confuse emotional chaos with importance. They never learn to walk away when they are at the top. But you're not one of them. You're becoming something rarer. A presence that bends perception, a silence that commands movement, a mind that stays invisible and undefeated. In the next phase, we sharpen your most dangerous tool, your unpredictability. Because the one thing more terrifying than a powerful man is a powerful man no one can predict. Power becomes absolute the moment it becomes unpredictable. Not when you're feared, not when you're respected, not even when you're loved, but when no one, not even your closest ally, knows what you'll do next. Machiavelli understood this better than anyone. Predictable men are easy to prepare for, easy to read, and easy to manipulate. They follow emotional patterns. If you flatter them, they soften. If you challenge them, they explode. If you ignore them, they chase. That kind of man is never feared. He's reacted to, not respected. He's tolerated, not followed. But the man who cannot be predicted, he becomes a threat to everyone because no one feels safe when they don't know your next move. And Machiavelli knew the fear of possibility is more powerful than any actual action. Break your own patterns publicly. This is counterintuitive, but devastatingly effective. People around you build mental models of who you are. They expect certain reactions, emotions, habits. You must shatter these on purpose. Smile when they expect anger. Withdraw when they expect confrontation. Show cold logic where they expected warmth. Help someone once and never again. Why? Because once you break your pattern in public, they no longer know the rules. Now every interaction becomes a calculation. People start questioning, is he serious? Is this a test? Is he watching me? Congratulations, you've planted doubt, and once doubt enters, control begins. You're no longer a person. You're a psychological equation they can't solve, and that terrifies them. Use strategic reversals. Here's a Machiavellian trick most never notice. Act consistently until it becomes comfortable, then flip it. If you're always diplomatic, suddenly become brutally direct. If you're always logical, explode emotionally once and walk away. If you're always generous, deny a favor with zero explanation. Why does this work? Because people anchor themselves to the version of you they're familiar with. The moment you reverse it, even once, their sense of safety collapses. They'll start watching their tone, double-checking their words, avoiding assumptions about you, seeking your validation even more. And that's when you win. Because true power isn't control through dominance. It's control through psychological unease. Make them uncertain about your limits, your rules, your intentions. They'll behave better, not out of respect, but out of survival. Speak less than you know. Always. Machiavelli once said, "A prudent man should always follow in the path trodden by great men and imitate those who are most excellent." But what he didn't say directly is that great men hide their insight. When you know more than you reveal, you become asymmetrical. One side visible, the other concealed. Here's how you train this. Never fully explain your reasoning. End conversations with ambiguity. When someone asks what you think, ask them what they think first. When you know the truth, stay silent and let them lie. Why? Because knowledge unspoken builds mystique. It gives you the edge of insight without revealing your cards. And it teaches others that your silence is never empty. It's calculated. Once people start fearing your silence, they'll start censoring themselves around you. They'll try to preempt your judgment. They'll adapt to your unspoken expectations. And that's invisible leadership. Leave open threads. This is elite-level psychological manipulation. And it's what normal minds can't handle. Most people try to close every loop, finish every thought, explain every move, clarify every emotion. Don't. Instead, practice the art of open threads controlled completion. Say "we'll see," and leave the room. Tell someone "we'll talk later" and never bring it up again. Start a sentence, pause, then smile and change subjects. This plants mental hooks in their mind. What was he going to say? Did I do something wrong? Is something coming? And those thoughts will replay on loop long after you've forgotten the conversation. You now live rent-free in their mind. And the longer they try to understand you, the more power you hold over them. Machiavelli didn't just teach how to dominate nations. He taught how to haunt the thoughts of powerful people until they bent to your rhythm without even noticing. Control the consequences, not the people. This is the final layer of unpredictable power. Stop trying to control people directly. It's clumsy, obvious, weak. Instead, design your consequences. Create environments where certain actions are punished, but never by you directly. A betrayal is followed by silence, not confrontation. Disrespect is answered with exclusion, not argument. Overstepping is met with withdrawal, not explanation. You become the kind of man who never reacts, but whose presence rewrites the terms of behavior. Others start adjusting themselves not because you asked, but because they fear the consequence of losing access to you. This is true Machiavellian power. Never yelling, never correcting, never chasing, just a quiet system of punishment so effective that people start policing themselves in your presence. That's when you've won. Now, do you see why most people self-destruct at this level? They want to be liked. They want to be praised. They want to be predictable, so they can feel accepted. But predictability is a prison, and those who want to be free must first be feared, not for what they do, but for what they might do. You've now reached the third layer: emotional detachment, psychological gravity, and unpredictability as a weapon. But the final chapter, that's where it all becomes one thing: a myth, not a man. A presence so controlled, so cold, so unreadable, that even your enemies respect you more than they hate you. Most people want to be remembered. Few understand how to become unforgettable. Because the truth is, your actions won't survive history. Your words will fade. Your accomplishments will be buried by time, but your aura, that's eternal, if you build it right. Machiavelli understood something far deeper than strategy. He knew how to turn a man into a myth, not a brand, not an influencer, a walking presence that lives inside people's minds long after he's left the room. This final form of power doesn't come from being loud, violent, or rich. It comes from crafting a psychological identity so sharp, so controlled, so impossibly calculated that people talk about you even in whispers. Let's build that. Design your archetype, then never break it. People don't follow personalities, they follow symbols. If you behave like one thing today and something else tomorrow, you'll be interesting, but never unforgettable. Instead, choose your archetype and commit to it until you die. Examples: the cold strategist who smiles rarely, moves slowly, and speaks with finality. The polite assassin whose silence crushes more than words ever could. The charming observer who flatters you as he takes everything from you. Once you've chosen it, you become it fully. You don't break character in private. You don't soften around friends. You burn the bridge back to normally. Why? Because your myth is only as strong as your consistency. Machiavelli knew rulers were respected less for their morals and more for their predictable ruthlessness. Even enemies will kneel before a consistent god, weaponize rumors, but never confirm anything. A powerful man is not defined by what he says. He's defined by what is whispered about him. Machiavelli loved to create chaos without fingerprints. And this is how you do the same. Let them think you have more than you show. Let them believe you've done what you haven't. Let them wonder whether your silence means rage or calm. But here's the trick: never confirm, never deny. If someone accuses you of cruelty, smile. If someone says you manipulated the outcome, stay silent. If someone praises your genius, change the subject. This creates a fog of legend around you. People start adding details to your story, details you never gave them. And now you've become larger than life. You've become story-worthy. Leave marks, not explanations. Every room you enter, every interaction you have, every decision you make should leave behind a shape, not a memory. A shape. Let me explain. Most people live forgettable lives because they explain everything. They justify, they apologize, they clarify. But power leaves confusion, emotion, presence. Examples: walk out of a conversation halfway through without anger. Compliment someone you usually ignore just once. Show intense interest in someone's plan, and vanish the next day. Help someone publicly, then punish them privately later. These are not acts of cruelty, these are acts of memory design, because people don't remember what you did. They remember how you made them feel without closure. That lingering tension, that's the shape of your legend forming in their mind. Make loyalty dangerous. Machiavelli never asked for blind loyalty, he engineered it, but more importantly, he made betrayal feel suicidal. Here's how. You must treat loyalty like a razor. It cuts both ways. If someone protects your name in public, reward them privately in excess. If someone betrays you in private, destroy them publicly without warning. Never threaten, never warn. Simply act and make it known after. This creates risk-weighted allegiance. People don't stay loyal because they love you. They stay loyal because they fear what disloyalty costs. And the more unpredictable your reaction, the more they start treating you like a god whose wrath is unknowable. That's the beginning of worship. Stop speaking. Start sculpting perception. Words are currency for the powerless. Presence is currency for the powerful. At this level, you no longer speak to influence. You exist in a way that shapes perception without saying anything. Train this daily. Enter rooms 5 seconds slower than everyone else. Let others fill the silence around you. Pause longer than necessary when someone asks you a question. Smile without showing emotion. End conversations first. Always dress one level colder than everyone in the room. Why does this matter? Because the unconscious cues you project now carry more weight than any speech. You're not a man anymore. You're an energy signature, one that cannot be mistaken, cannot be ignored, and cannot be duplicated. Now you understand what destroys normal people at this level. They want to be seen. You train yourself to be felt. They want to be understood. You become impossible to predict. They want to be liked. You make being in your presence feel like walking through a storm. Beautiful but dangerous. And that's the final transformation. You're no longer building power.